Vietnam condemns China's violations of international law in the EC. Vietnam receives first batch of vaccines under COVAX scheme. Vaccine passport mechanism needed to promote trade and investment. MOIT said Vietnam will actively cooperate with the US to address concerns on trade practices. Hello, this is FBNC News and thanks for joining us here in today's program. Now, many countries in the world, including Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia and Japan, have shown serious concerns over China's recent deployment of over 200 ships around int'l Island cluster in Vietnam's Trường Sa archipelago and requested the country to immediately bring these vessels out of the area and end all provocations. In a regular press conference, the Vietnamese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Lê Thị Thu Hằng said that the operation of the Chinese ships within the territorial waters of int'l Đông Island in the Trường Sa archipelago has violated Vietnam's sovereignty and the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Seas regulations on the operation of foreign vessels in the territorial waters of coastal nations, run counter to the spirit and the content of the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the EC and complicated the situation, which is unfavorable for the process of the negotiations between ASEAN and China on a Code of Conduct of Parties in the EC. The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs said in a diplomatic protest that the swarming and threatening presence of the Chinese ships creates an atmosphere of instability and shows that China is ignoring its commitments to promoting peace and stability in the region. At the reception for Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi on March 30th, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga voiced his concern over China's activities in the waters, including the enforcement of its Coast Guard law, which allows patrol ships to use weapons. Both sides spoke highly of the importance of maintaining free and open navigation based on international law. Meanwhile, Japanese ambassador to the Philippines, Koshikawa Katsuhiko, tweeted that the EC issues are directly related to peace and stability and a concern for all parties. Vietnam received 811,000 doses of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccines on Thursday, its first batch of vaccines under the global COVAX scheme, following a week-long delay caused by limited supply. The Southeast Asian country, which began its coronavirus vaccination program last month, is aiming to secure 30 million doses in total via the COVAX vaccine sharing facility. Thursday delivery took Vietnam's number of AstraZeneca doses to nearly 930,000 so far, but the country is looking to diversify its procurement from more sources, including Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, China's Sinovac, and Russia's vaccine Sputnik V. In a meeting with Health Minister Nguyễn Thanh Long, Russia's embassy in Hanoi on Wednesday offered to help Vietnam manufacture Sputnik V locally, the Health Ministry said in a statement. Long also said Vietnam would approve the Chinese vaccine within weeks after Sinovac submits the required documents. Vietnam is among only a few countries in Asia yet to use the Chinese vaccine. Vietnam has been praised for its record in containing the virus through mass testing and tracing and strict quarantining, which has kept its cases to just 2,603, with 35 deaths. Nearly 50,000 people have been vaccinated. Thursday's shipment, originally of 1.37 million doses, was expected to be delivered by March 25th, but was delayed due to supply shortages, according to the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF, which is handling the COVAX rollout in Vietnam. Vietnam's first domestically developed COVID-19 vaccine, called NanoCOVAX, is expected to be put into use in 2022. 4 Vietnamese companies are engaged in vaccines research and production, and 2 are at the human trial stage. Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc ordered the health, tourism and diplomacy sectors to soon study and issue a vaccine passport mechanism in order to promote trade and investment while addressing the government's regular meeting on March 31st. The government leader demanded the health sector to submit a plan on the matter as soon as possible, assessing the implementation of socio-economic development plan in the first 3 months of the year. The Prime Minister said the country witnessed better outcomes in both production and business, while many economic indicators continuing to grow in the context that the COVID-19 pandemic has been kept under control. Accordingly, the nation's GDP expanded 4.8% in the first quarter, while the state budget revenue increased by over 30%. The countries enjoyed a trade surplus of over $2 billion. Vietnam has well fulfilled the dual goals of containing the COVID-19 pandemic and boosting production and business, he said, attributing the positive results to the engagement of the entire political system and especially the leadership of the party. The Prime Minister also noted that Vietnam's diplomatic achievements were confirmed and the country's international prestige enhanced. He asked for more efforts in preventing the COVID-19, promoting bilateral trade and investment. Fitch Ratings has revised Vietnam's outlook to positive from stable and affirmed a long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at BB. The Ministry of Finance said the credit rating agency's upgrade of Vietnam's outlook reflects the growth resilience of the country, which was among the few economies in the Asia-Pacific region, and the BB rating category to maintain positive growth in 2020 at 2.91%. Fitch Ratings recognized Vietnam's fiscal and government debt achievements, its successes in bringing the coronavirus outbreak swiftly under control, strong policy support and export demand, along with continued strengthening of external finances due to persistent current account surpluses and rising international reserves. It forecasts GDP growth of about 7% in 2021 and 2022, in line with the broader global economic recovery, sustaining export growth and a gradual normalization of domestic economic activity, based on its expectation of continued success by the authorities in containing domestic coronavirus infections. The agency noted Vietnam's efforts to maintain macroeconomic stability, sustain high growth, reduce the GDP per capita gap vis-à-vis the country's peers, and further improve public finances, for example through sustainable fiscal consolidation and debt stabilization over the medium term, are among factors that could, individually or collectively, lead to positive rating action. Vietnam received $4.1 billion in foreign direct investment in the first 3 months of this year, up 6.5% from the year earlier. Government data recently showed FDI has been a key driver of Vietnam's economic growth. Companies with investment from foreign firms account for about 70% of the Southeast Asian countries' exports. FDI pledges, which indicate the size of future FDI disbursements, rose 18.5% from a year earlier to $10.1 billion in the January-March period. The government said in a statement, of the pledges, 49.6% would go to manufacturing and processing, while 38.9% are to be invested in electricity distribution, it added. Singapore was the top source of FDI pledges in the period, followed by Japan and South Korea. The U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai, in a call on Thursday with Vietnam's Minister of Industry and Trade, highlighted U.S. concerns about Vietnam's currency practices. A USTR statement said. Tai and the Vietnamese Minister Trần Tuấn Anh also discussed U.S. concerns on illegal timber practices, digital trade and agriculture, the statement said. Vietnam's Ministry of Industry and Trade, in a statement on Friday, said Vietnam and the United States will continue to actively cooperate to comprehensively address the concerns to maintain a stable trade relation. The ministry said bilateral trade between the two countries is expected to reach $100 billion this year, up from $90.8 billion last year. The United States is Vietnam's largest export market. The U.S. Treasury Department in December labeled Vietnam a currency manipulator due to its growing trade surplus with the United States, its large global current account surplus, and heavy foreign exchange market intervention to hold down the value of its dome currency. In January, the USTR released the results of an investigation into Vietnam's currency practices. It found Vietnam's action to push down the value of its currency were unreasonable and restricted U.S. commerce, but it did not take immediate action to impose punitive tariffs. In February, Reuters reported that Vietnam's central bank was intervening in foreign exchange markets using what traders described as an unusual method. Vietnamese officials claim that the label is misleading and the country's exchange rate policy is not targeted at creating an unfair competitive advantage for Vietnamese exports. Garment makers in 9 countries across Asia, including Vietnam and the Middle East, have banded together to lay down red lines for contracts with clothes retailers, according to a draft document seen exclusively by Reuters, after suffering crippling damage from retroactive cancellations and changes to payment terms at the start of the pandemic. Global retailers including Decathlon, Arcadia, Gap, Coles and Primark cancelled or paused orders to garment-making factories in Bangladesh, worth just under $3.7 billion in March and April last year, according to the results of an email survey of factories in Asia seen by Reuters, invoking a clause in their contracts allowing them to forfeit payment in the case of events outside of their control. While some payments from last year have been repaid and clothing sales are beginning to recover from last year's record losses, orders are still far smaller than normal with shorter lead times and longer payment windows, factory owners contacted by Reuters said. The associations representing suppliers in China, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, Pakistan, Turkey, Morocco, and Indonesia have drafted a document containing minimum terms they hope to present to clients as a united front. The red lines are currently not legally enforceable, but suppliers hope their joint leverage will prevent retailers from playing them off against each other in search of more lenient terms. Under the terms of the draft document, retailers could not take longer than 90 days to pay suppliers. In the event of deferred payments, suppliers and buyers would negotiate a fee covering the supplier's interest payments and loss of profits. Discounts could not be requested after a purchase order was issued. The sudden increase in demand for land, factories and warehouses in Vietnam has pushed up rental costs at industrial parks near major cities, according to Savills Vietnam. Industrial area estate has enjoyed positive gains in both rental rates and occupancy rates, despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Savills Vietnam data shows that demand for industrial real estate has been rising since 2018, leading to a shortage. Average occupancy rates at industrial parks were high in 2020. In northern areas, they stood at around 90% in Hanoi, 95% in Bắc Ninh, 89% in Hưng Yên, and 73% in Hải Phòng. In the south, they were 88% in Ho Chi Minh City, 79% in Bà Rịa, Vũng Tàu, 84% in Long An, and 94% in Đồng Nai. Most notably, in Bình Dương, the average was 99%. As the demand-supply gap widens, prices are moving up. In Ho Chi Minh City, leases in industrial parks have reached $147 per square meter and $123 per square meter in Long An. In Hanoi, they are up to $129 per square meter and $95 per square meter in Bắc Ninh, according to Savills report. If prices continue to rise, Vietnam's competitiveness in terms of price will be weakened unless there is more new supply. According to the Ministry of Planning and Investment, Vietnam has 284 operating industrial parks and another 86 under construction. Savills experts said infrastructure at industrial parks needs to be improved, while policies and management mechanisms should be finalized to improve operational efficiency. This is especially necessary for Vietnam to attract more waves of investment relocating from elsewhere. National flag carrier Vietnam Airlines will resume flights on the Hanoi-Narita-Tokyo, Hanoi-Incheon-Seoul, Hanoi-Sydney, and Ho Chi Minh City-Sydney routes from April 1st to June 30th. The move is a part of efforts to restore its international flights in a safe fashion, meet passengers' demand, and contribute to boosting growth of the economy and the tourism sector. Flights from Hanoi to Seoul will depart on Thursdays, while those to Tokyo will take off on April 3rd, 8th, 11th, 16th, 23rd, 27th, and 29th. In May and June, Vietnam will operate 2 flights per week on this route on Thursdays and Saturdays. It will operate Hanoi-Sydney flights on Saturdays and Ho Chi Minh City-Sydney flights on Thursdays and Sundays. Flights from Vietnam currently only serve Vietnamese nationals studying or visiting relatives in foreign countries and foreigners returning home from Vietnam. Vietnam Airlines also plans to conduct charter flights from Japan, the Republic of Korea, and Taiwan, depending on licenses from relevant authorities. So that has come to an end of FBNC News this week. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Goodbye.